Hey everybody, I'm Shelby Chase. I am the president of the board of directors for ACLU Chico chapter. We are a nonpartisan organization representing the civil liberties of all people. We're down here at the Chico Women's Club. We have our annual election event. We have Dr. Mandy Crosby Jordan. She's going to be here speaking from Chico State about economic justice here in the community. We also have Lo and Behold the band. They're going to be playing, and we have food from Leon Bistro. So it'll be great. Everybody. First off, I just want to say thank you to a couple people. We have a lot of representatives here. The heart of the event is economic justice here in the community. It's a huge issue right now, and so we have NAMI here, if you guys would like some information. We also have the Jesus Center, and we have chat. So thank you to everybody who came here to give information about resources here in the community for the homeless. Also, I want to thank Ann Leon. Where is she at? So Ann is responsible for all of the food here. She's done an amazing job. Ann. Also, Lo and Behold, they are the band here. If you guys want to wave your arms in the air, thank you guys for coming. And in a moment here, we will be hearing from Dr. Mandy Crosby Jordan. She's going to be educating you on economic justice here in the community. She is a Chico State professor, and she's going to bring up her husband, who works at the Torres shelter. So this year we made some changes to our chapter. We really want our board to be doing meaningful, impactful work in the community. So we created subcommittees. And the board has been wonderful. They are so involved out there. They're taking in community issues and really finding solutions and passing them on to the affiliate. So board members, I'm going to be talking about you if you could stand up. So first we have Lita Chase. She's right over there. So she is the chair of the Inmate Rights Committee and the Reproductive Rights Committee. And she is a SART nurse, and she is bringing up the Innocence Project so that they can talk to public defenders here and really make sure that we're doing the right thing behind, criminal justice. We also have Forrest Harlan. Forrest. So Forrest is the affiliate rep. He goes down to San Francisco once a month, and he reports in and gathers information so that we know what's going on with the National ACLU. Then we have Greg Hubble. Greg, where are you at? Back there. Greg is our treasurer. So I do not do finances, so I really respect Greg and what he does for the chapter here. We have Rebecca Rouse. Where's she at? So Rebecca's back there. She's a paralegal, and she's very involved with inmate rights as well. We have Bob Ballantyne. Bob, where are you at? Bob. So Bob is an educator here in the community. He's very involved with the homeless, and he serves on all of our committees. Then we have Benson. So Benson, if you can come up here. So everybody here knows Benson, I'm sure. Benson is really the heart of our board, and I want to recognize him. He is the most educated and passionate person in this community. He really lives for ACLU and to defend the civil liberties of everybody. So he's out there working 15-hour days as a volunteer to represent everybody. And so I just want to recognize Benson. Benson, thank you for everything that you do. Benson is a huge homeless advocate. He volunteers at all the shelters, and so he's going to talk to you guys for a second.
Yep. Before I delve into my spiel, a little bit about Shelby. Fancy that? Yeah. Met Shelby about 2 or 3 years ago. We were, actually 2 years ago, we were doing an inaugural protest on Forest and Notre Dame, and she made me up a sign that said, "You're fired." And so I went over there, I was holding it up, and I'm getting all this white power, FU, all this stuff. They're just laying it on me. And Shelby goes, hey, I'm going to go over there where Benson is. And that was the beginning of our relationship. Yeah, it's been a sweet ride ever since. John Love, yeah. Basically, yeah. We had a vacancy on the board. I nominated Shelby. The board went along, and so this is our new ACLU thanks to Shelby. She's pretty much the one that invited all of you here. I started going, Shelby, how many RSVPs do we have? 43, 42. Obviously, there's more than 43 or 42 here. Thank you, Shelby. All right. Yes, put it up for Shelby. Come on. Now, this is our new ACLU. Okay. Economic justice. We're doing a speakers bureau, and that would be Bob Ballantine and Greg Hubble. And basically, we're looking for organizations to speak to about what's happening with the homeless situation in Chico. There's a lot of myths, untruths being perpetuated about it. We want to change that, so if you know of any organizations that we could speak with, contact me and let me know. With the Speakers Bureau, it's been kind of a hiatus for the last 4 months, but in March, we're going to kick it back in gear. Another big thing about economic justice is we do a point-in-time survey, not the ACLU, but the continuum of care for the Butte County. And about 30% of our homeless folks have mental health challenges. And NAMI over here is going to start to kick back Laura's Law. We tried it last year, but we need to go. We need it. We lost a. We lost a friend last year. He should have been in a hold situation. If we'd had Laura's Law, that would have been a different story. He's no longer with us. We need Laura's Law.
Right. Thank you.
Let's move on to police practices. Basically, I've been working with the feeding folks in the plaza. When I get home tonight, I'm going to be cooking up a big pile of food for them, 10 to 15 pounds of food. We feed about 50 plus people there. Patrick Newman kind of started it. A lot of us have just dovetailed in after it. Talking about feeding people in the plaza. Ann from Leon's Bistro, she helps out. The other night, we were doing a birthday party over at the Crush. He gives me a big bag of food. We go over to the plaza. We're helping those people. Yes, Joe Love, yeah. Yeah, and basically, I also do Safe Space and the Plaza. Those are my big hands-ons with working with our homeless folks. Plus, I also, my neighborhood bus stop is 12th Park. It's right there where the Jesus Center is. So I spend a lot of time just talking with the homeless folks. One of the main things I do is educate them as to what their constitutional rights are regarding the police and showing them our police complaint form. The police complaint form was originally started by Bob Troush and Leslie Johnson. They were the founders of our ACLU. Yeah, they're down. They're not here now. They're down in Belize. Bob's got business down there too. But after they founded the ACLU, they went over and they founded Safe Space. Then after Safe Space, they founded Chat. So wherever they go, things get better. Basically, I'm kind of concerned. There's another new group that formed in Chico. Their main mission is helping foster better relationships between the community and the police department. They're concerned citizens for justice. They're kind of laying low right now. Yeah, thank you. They're concerned citizens for justice will be coming out public more. They're just kind of getting their act together. No. Okay. All right. There we go. Sorry. Yeah. But also, the police department has just moved school resources officers into the high schools and the junior high schools. The ACLU will be there tabling. I'm trying to get that going. And basically another thing that we're trying to do is partner with other nonpartisan groups. We have to be nonpartisan. That basically means you can't be endorsing candidates. Upcoming events, we're looking at a freedom of information teach-in seminar. Yeah. And then we're also resurrecting our immigration rights project. We actually brought we asked the previous city council to designate Chico as a sanctuary city. Obviously, that didn't happen. We're going to bring that back toward our next city council. Yes, yeah. We've got a kick-ass city council, right? Yeah. And basically, I manage the tabling for the ACLU here. So if you have any events that I can table at, let me know. We're doing the Women's March, Martin Luther King, and Chico Pride right now. But any other events are more than welcome. We'll come. You tell us, we'll come. There we go. There's literature back on the tables. Please take a good look at it. There's one particular I like. It's California Justice. California Justice was an app created by Marcos Benito. Basically, it allows you to film the cops, video the cops with your camera, and it goes directly up into the iCloud. So even if they take your camera, we've still got the evidence. All right, Shelby, back to you.
Okay, everybody, so thank you again for coming. We're going to have Dr. Nandi Crosby Jordan come up to speak to you about economic justice here in Butte County. And one more jaw love for Benson here.
Jaw love.
Thank you. Greetings. This crowd is huge, which means I'm a little bit nervous. And I'm going to do this a little bit different. When I was asked to speak a few months ago, they asked me to speak about economic injustice. And I said, I got that. And then a couple weeks ago, I met Shelby, and she asked me to make it much more local and to talk specifically about the homeless issue in Chico. And I was like, I don't know a whole lot of stuff. My husband works at the Torres shelter as a case manager, and so I'm going to bring him up halfway through. I want to make 3 points, and he's going to come on board for the third point. So the first point, or actually before I make the first point, I want to share this quote with you that I absolutely love, love, love. And I hear Cornel West saying it a lot. And the quote is, "Justice is what love looks like in public." Just sit with that for a second. Justice is what love looks like in public. And so the 3 points that I'd like to share, the first one has to do with the kind of cultural disparity that we have, or the kind of economic disparity that we have, and the way culture gets attached to that. And the second one has to do with a distinction between equity and equality, and the need for us to shift away from our conversations about equality as much as we do, and toward a conversation about equity much more intensely. And then finally, I want to talk about Butte County and look specifically not just at the homeless issue, but the homeless issue with regard to pre and post Camp Fire, and the ways in which we talk about and think about who is deserving, specifically around issues of poverty and homelessness. So in terms of the first issue, now we know the statistics around the economic disparities in the world and in America. We know, we can Google it. We know the numbers. We know that there are racial disparities. We know that with regard to gender, sex, sexuality, there are economic disparities. one of the things that we often don't talk about is the ways in which culture gets attached to that. And when I say culture, what I mean is the values, beliefs, the trends, the patterns, the legacy, the ways in which we engage with those economic disparities from our heads and from our hearts. And so I find it very compelling that we live in a society where the people who make the most money, it matters not whether those folks have exploited people to get the most, whether they've inherited it and then may or may not be nice people around that, where we tend to put so much value and we aspire to be like those people and to have what those people have. I once saw something, and I shared this with my husband the other day. It was, I don't know if it was a meme or a quote or something I saw on social media that said, I'd like to have just enough money to find out that money doesn't make you happy. And I think that that is an amazing place to shoot for. But the hitting the lotto and the having gold and diamonds at your entryway and to sit on the toilet and so forth, I imagine that those folks are no more happy than the folks who have just hit that place where they realize, I got enough to realize that money doesn't make me happy. And so what I really like to do in a lot of my sociology classes, particularly the classes that I teach called social inequality, I always start off with the question, why is it some people have more than other people? What are the consequences of that? How did we get to that place? What does it mean? Is it fair? Do we support the kinds of structural realities that support and perpetuate and create those inequalities? Are we okay with that? I also saw something the other day, and I had read about this a while ago, but I saw a YouTube video about this family in Mumbai, India, one of the poorest places on the planet. The house, the most expensive house in the world, sits smack dab in that city. It is 26 stories high. 9 of those stories are just parking lots. They have more than 100 servants. The house is worth $1 billion or so, owned by billionaires. Only 6 people live there, by the way, husband, wife, their kids. And again, I ask the question, why do we aspire to that? Are those folks any more happy than the people who are able to meet their needs each week? Why do we revere such material things? But more specifically and more importantly, I am interested in at what cost? And I mean the cost to our humanity. Do we sign up for in our own heads and our hearts for the idea that that is something to aspire to? There is so much exploitation in the world, and what is it about our beliefs, our values, our heritage? What is it about the way in which we show up to our interactions with other folks that make us believe that somehow that is the epitome of joy, happiness, and success? And so I encourage you to continue to Google and study the statistics around economic inequality, but really spend time thinking about the cultural values that are embedded so much in the way that we engage our friends, our families, the celebrities, the TV, the news, and so forth, the ways in which we think our lives are going to be amazing if somehow we could have more than what we have right now. My second point with regard to equality and equity. Now, equality around the time of the civil rights movement and before was an amazing concept to consider because it was about saying, you have X, why can't other people have X too? This particular group is allowed a certain amount of privilege or certain kinds of resources, and other people are denied, even by law, are denied those privileges and those resources, and that's just not right. And so much of the fight in our society was about making sure everybody had the same stuff, or at least access to the same stuff. And that was around race and gender and sexuality and sex, so forth, right? And so that was really, really, really important. And it's still important for us to consider the fact that nobody should be denied the right to have the stuff, the resources, the jobs, the rights. That's just wrong, and we should continue to fight for that. But I want to also include the idea that equity is really, really, really important to consider, particularly with regard to injustice, or justice for that matter. So equity, and you've probably even seen this cartoon somewhere online. It's a little drawing. And it's, there are three people who are standing next to each other, and they're trying to look over a fence. And in the first frame of this little cartoon, each person has the same size box that they're standing on, right? And so let's say the box is 6 inches high. Well, the person who is the tallest is able to see over the fence on that 6-inch high box. The second person, who's kind of medium height, can barely see over it. And then the third person, who is short, is not able to see over it. Now, all three of those folks have a 6-inch box. Equality looks like everybody getting the same 6-inch box. But everybody can't see over that because that box doesn't suit everybody's needs. Well, in the second frame of that cartoon, each person has a different height box. So somebody may not need a box at all, and someone else may need a 2-foot box, and someone else may be fine with 6 inches, okay? Now, out of context, everybody just shows up to get their box. It may look like, well, why do you get more of a box than I do? Why is yours taller than mine? How come I didn't get a box at all? It appears to be unequal and thus unjust. But everybody doesn't need a 2-foot box. Everybody does not need food stamps. Everybody does not need extra services. Everyone does not need the extra resources. And so this is an important concept to consider when we're thinking about economic injustice, because you have a whole lot of folks who are thinking about the fact that, well, wait a minute, and I hear my students say this all the time. They may be in the grocery store and somebody is paying with an EBT card and they're pissed off because not only is that person getting something for free, but they don't even like the stuff that they're getting. They're getting cookies and steak and candy and chips. How dare they get those kinds of things? It's like, but you have cookies and chips and steak and so forth. Yes, but I worked for those things. As if we then get to decide how people, or the kinds of things that people put in their body, right? That's a whole different conversation. But I think it's really important that we start thinking about the fact that there are some people who need certain kinds of things. And I think that a part of what justice and love looks like is to make sure that the people in our community who need those things get those things. Now, sometimes that might feel to you like you're not getting something, like you're being left out of the narrative. I encourage you to examine this notion of entitlement and your sense of what you are entitled to, as you say in that same sentence that somehow other people aren't entitled because they don't work as hard, because they don't look like you, because they don't do what you do, believe what you believe. And I think that there is something really problematic, and again, it gets back to that piece about our cultural beliefs attached to justice and the ways in which we think about who is deserving. You see where I'm going with this in terms of the homeless and the people who were affected by the fire and the folks who are chronically homeless. This is my third point. There is something to be said, I think, about the ways in which people have been talking about and thinking about and are attached to some belief about who is deserving and who's not. Thank you. The first day we returned back to the university from the university closure after the fire, one of my students asked me, Dr. Nandi, how do you feel about the fact that there are some people who've been homeless for a long time, taking advantage of the kinds of resources that were brought here for the displaced? And I said, I have no issues whatsoever because I don't see the need to make that distinction. Now, truth be told, those weren't my resources, and maybe those were limited and they were to be accessed only by a limited number of folks. And so my beliefs only go but so far. But I went on to tell the student, I imagine, and I don't believe that I'm too far off, I imagine that the kinds of resources that were brought to this community were the exact same things that the chronically homeless had been asking for a long time. And so when I saw that Tide had washers for people to wash their clothes over at Lowe's, I thought, I think everybody deserves to have clean clothes. When I see signs around town for support groups for people who have been displaced, I think the chronically homeless deserve support groups too. And so I say all that to say that I imagine that there have been people who have been homeless and struggling, or have been from house to house or on somebody's couch, but they've been struggling for a long time. And it may be because they are returning citizens from prison, because they are dealing with issues of drug addictions, because of this, there's a concept called the feminization of poverty that looks at all of these patterns in which women's income and status and stability have been tied to their marriage. And once those marriages are over, they find themselves seeking resources or being on people's couches or being in the shelter. There are issues of abuse. There are all kinds of reasons why people find themselves month after month, year after year, seeking shelter. And I'm telling you, I just know it in my spirit that those folks have been saying for a very long time, I need X, I need Y, I need X, I need Y. And it was not until the fires came that we saw certain folks deserving of X and Y. And again, that is attached to our notion, our cultural connections, our cultural beliefs and values around who is worthy and who is not. And I think that that is an immense flaw in terms of how we think about ourselves as American citizens, in terms of how we think about the American dream, about the beliefs that we continue to sign up for in our day-to-day interactions with people who look like us, but we somehow believe they are not like us. They bleed and breathe the same as we do. And somehow we have decided they don't deserve. Or if they did deserve certain things, then I got mine this way and they're not doing those things. Let's say I work hard and they're not working at all. Again, that goes to that equity issue. Everybody doesn't need the same thing. Everybody's not showing up to their experiences the same way, whether it be because of mental illness or inheritance or the structural inequities that are in place, such as racism and sexism and heterosexism and transphobia. Everybody is where they are for a particular reason. And it is not up to you or to me to judge how they got there. Your job is to show up in love. Your job is to show up. It is to show up asking the universe, how can I be of service? Now, I'm not much of a church person, but I feel like I'm preaching at this point. So I'm just gonna back off. I'm gonna back off a little bit from my preaching and ask my husband to come up, and I'm gonna ask him a couple questions about his experience at the Torres shelter, and hope that he can contribute some more information about this. Okay, so, good job. Oh, thanks. So Joaquin Crosby Jordan, and so he is a case manager at the tourist shelter. And prior to, this is something that I'm not sure a lot of people know, prior to his becoming a case manager there, Torres had been pretty much a dry shelter. And so it was the case that if you were under the influence and you showed up, they would say, no. Or you come back in a few hours and maybe there's some overflow space for you and so forth. Is that how it was? And so he started the harm reduction program. And so it is the case that you can be intoxicated from any type of substance whatsoever. And he has created a space where there are beds and resources and 12-step groups that happen every day, where people can have their pets and their children if they are under the influence. And so he has created, so folks aren't getting turned away. Now, if you come violent or doing something else, whether you're intoxicated or not, that's a different kind of thing. But if you are under the influence, there is space for you at the Torres shelter. And so I guess one of the questions that I want to ask you, or I'm hoping that you can speak to, has to do with that in the time that you've been there, he's only been there for a couple of months, but in the time that you've been there, what has been the greatest lesson you've learned about the people who utilize the resources at the shelter?
The only distinction that I've seen is they have a different address. People who are homeless are people. They just don't have a fixed address. And that was a huge lesson for me. I spent 18 years in prison, and so returning to the community, I thought I had seen everything. But coming to the shelter, working in the shelter, I realized that homelessness can be triggered by anything. The best thing that we can do is show up. So it's kind of not ironic, but it's nice that you talk about that, because one of the things that I wanted to do when I returned from prison was I wanted to be a really good person. I just wanted to be a good guy. I wanted to live a life as a citizen, contribute in a meaningful way. And every day that I go to work, I give something to someone that they needed the most in that moment in the world. And so coming from prison, that is a huge thing, to be able to give a person a pair of socks, do their laundry, talk to them, give them a waiver for an ID. This is what they needed most in the world. And I have an opportunity to provide that. And so anyone in here who works with the homeless population, who has reached out, who has said, hi, how you doing as you walk through downtown? You're giving that person what they need the most in the world, and that is a phenomenal thing to be able to do that. You know, with some deliberation, deliberately, every day you show up, and this is what love looks like. This is what it is. They need this today. So for me, that was the most significant thing, was understanding that these are just people. Mm-hmm. They don't have an address, but they're people. Mm-hmm. They have needs, they have wants, they want to feel significant. They want to know that as they walk this earth, someone recognizes them. And so if you can do that, that is a huge thing. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about how or if the dynamics at the shelter shifted after the fire?
Again, it goes back to address. It doesn't matter what triggered homelessness. They just don't have a fixed home. Whether it was fire, a poor decision, a horrible landlord, a shift in the economy, they are the same. When you give them, would you like a pair of socks? They don't say, oh, I'm pre-disaster homeless. These socks are gonna feel different. They don't say that. They're socks. When you do laundry, the distinction doesn't matter. I think that's the biggest shift, is coming to grips with the fact that these are people who have a need. We're there to provide shelter. So this is a way for us to serve the community. And when I say the community, I don't mean people with fixed addresses. I mean everybody in the community, whether you have an address or not. When you show up to the shelter, there's an expectation that you're going to be sheltered, that you're going to be safe, that your needs are going to be met, that you're going to be recognized, that you're going to be treated with compassion and dignity that we all want. So the fire has created a shift in our thinking and in the way that we look at ourselves and the way that we look at others.
Okay. Okay. And so I'm interested. I think a lot of people, it is my fear or concern that a lot of people have issues with distinguishing who they believe is worthy or not. And so I want to look specifically at addiction, for example. And so I'm curious to know the role in which you believe that drug use or drug addiction is connected to homelessness and the perceptions that we have about who the homeless are.
Well, I work with Lisa a lot with outreach. And one of the things that needs to be said is whether you have a home or not, you can be addicted. I think the percentages play out the same they would in any community. The vast majority of the people who are addicted are tired of being addicted. So I think one of the things that we can do is start asking the question is, what does the utility that homeless has in sustaining addiction? That is the question that needs to be asked. And so given choices, most people don't want to do those things. So addiction is a thing. It is a thing in all of our communities. It is just one other element that needs to be addressed structurally. This is not something that is a moral issue. This is an issue that people have struggled with addresses. For me, it is a matter of meeting people where they are.
Right.
And being a substance abuse counselor, it doesn't matter if you have an address or not. That may contribute a little more to the stress that you're under, but we still need to address the issue of what are the underlying circumstances that are driving those behaviors.
Okay. Well, then my last question has to do with everybody in this room who may or may not be able to write a check or may or may not have the extra time to volunteer. Is there anything, and maybe Lisa, you can answer this question too, is there something, what is one thing we can all do to help?
So I think there are a number of things that you can do. The first thing, I'm new to Chico, is as you walk through downtown, there are not pieces of the park bench. There are people. Say hi. Ask how they're doing. Say hello. If you can't write a check, volunteer safe space. Volunteer to Jesus Center. Show up at the tour shelter. That beautiful young lady back there serves dinner all the time. Work in her kitchen. She will whip you into shape and have you prepping vegetables. You can do anything that you want to do with regards to contributing in a way that is meaningful with sweat equity. It doesn't require hard dollars. It just requires a willingness to show up authentically. It requires a willingness to engage. It requires a willingness to not reach down, but reach out and just meet people where they are. So.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to wrap this up with the first line of a book that is one of my favorites. It's a book of fiction called The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier. And it's about a teenager who is an African-American young woman, inner city New York. Father is a drug addict. Father's a drug dealer, mother's a drug addict. They're living in the projects, and it's a phenomenal, very, very colorful story. But in the preface of the book, there's this very short poem. And she's writing as if she's the teenage girl whose name is Winter. And the first line is, "There is no such thing as love anymore." I refuse to believe that because I know what love is. And I know how love looks. And I know how it feels and tastes and smells. And I know that if it were not for love, y'all wouldn't be here today. Thank you.
Okay, so my last announcement is on the 19th at 10 a.m. in City Plaza is going to be the 3rd annual Women's March. So hopefully we will see you all there. So the music's going to be starting. We have an opener. Her name is Lou Thixton, and she is 15 years old. She comes from a long line of social activists, and she herself is very involved in the activist community.
This
so
is gospel
here she is, Lou
for
Thixton.
the fallen ones locked away in permanent slumber, assembling their philosophies from pieces of broken memories. Oh, 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 oh. The gnashing teeth and criminal tongues conspire against the odds, but they haven't seen the best of us yet. If you love me, let me go. If you love me, let me go. 'Cause these words are knives that often leave scars. The fear of falling apart, and truth be told, I never was yours. The fear of falling apart. Oh, 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 oh. This is gospel for the vagabonds, ne'er-do-wells and insufferable bastards, confessing their apostasy, led away by imperfect imposters. Oh, oh, oh. Sorry, my pedal slipped. Oh, oh, oh. Don't try to sleep through the end of the world and burying me alive, 'cause I won't give up without a fight. If you love me, let me go. If you love me, let me go. 'Cause these words are knives that often leave scars. The fear of falling apart, and truth be told, I never was yours. The fear of falling apart. Oh, 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 oh. The fear of falling apart. Oh, 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 oh. The fear of falling apart. Oh, 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 oh. The fear of falling apart. Oh, 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 oh.
So my last song is actually an original. It's kind of in the works. It's called Blank Page. It's kind of about writer's block, but then it turned into something else because I was really, really struggling for like a month to write a song, and that usually doesn't happen. So I had writer's block. And so I started writing a song about writer's block, but then it turned into something completely different. So this is kind of just what happens.
Feels like I'm staring at a wall, expecting for something to happen. Kicking stones across the sand in my imagination. I'm just waiting for something to appear, but nothing's crossing I'd be lying if I said I didn't think of you. And I'd be lying if I didn't say it was you. But I promised myself I'd keep it a blank page. I don't think about you often, but it doesn't come with ease. Just let me stare into nothingness, because it's nothing less. I'd be lying if I said I didn't think of you. And I'd be lying if I said it wasn't you. And I'd be lying if I said there wasn't anything wrong. But I promised myself that I'd get over you.
Hey, thanks Lauren for opening us up. That was amazing. I can't believe she's 15. That's crazy. Yeah, I'm 27. I wasn't there at 15. We are a band from Chico, California. We're called Lo and Behold. Oh, so you know? Cool. The song is called Down.
Yeah, come on, girl, why you looking that way? Really took the trash out yesterday. Going out tonight, so expect me late. Friend booze and I ain't gonna set you straight. Yeah, quit calling me, quit calling me. Got my hands full, girl, can't you see now? Quit bother me, whoa, nah, nah. Hold up, girl, did you say you're leaving me? I just want you to stay, but I don't know if you're down, down, down. Just give me one more day, then you can kick me to the ground, ground, ground. Don't leave me on my own, don't leave me on my own. Don't leave me on my own, don't leave me.
Can't explain the way I want you around, but I won't lie, I might skip town. That crooked smile's had me a time or two, and I don't know if you're ready for this news. I needed you and you threw it all away. Oh, I know that staying here I'll pay. I needed you and you threw it all away. Oh, I can't decide.
I just want you to stay, but I don't know if you're down, down, down. Give me one more day, then you can kick me to the ground,
Shelby. Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, we want to really thank ACLU for having us tonight. This is awesome. Thank you, Shelby. Can I do it again? This is a Webster Moore original. He hates it when I do that, but he's so good.
Hold on to the feeling. Take that shit for granted. You'll be crying over it when it's gone. Then it's over. One day things were going good, the next I'll have recluse. So long, man, forget you. Had a lot on my mind that I needed to say. Wouldn't give me the time. Yeah, I wanna feel good. I wanna feel nice. 'Cause having you around was like living in paradise. And I miss how you kept me on the edge of my seat. This was more than just a dream. There was so much more that I could bring. But I'm sorry for everything that I had said. Shit I did. And I'm sorry, oh so sorry. I'm not doing well. No, I'm not doing good. So hold on to the feeling. Don't take that shit for granted. You'll be crying over it when it's gone. Then it's over. One day things are going good, the next I'll have real blue. So long, man, forget you. Had a lot on my mind that I needed to say. Wanna give me the time to I'm trying to light up. Yeah, you leave me, let me feeling like it's too much. God damn, it's like you hit me with a semi-truck. And now I'm taking chances, it's a pile up. I'm trying to light up. Wanna get so high that I can't hide. Man, you leave me, let me feeling so speechless. Ain't no one in the world gotta see this.
On my hands and knees, on my hands and knees. Too much weight trying to pull me down. Fill me up, put loving in my cup. I gotta move on. Hands and knees, on my hands and knees. Too much weight trying to pull me down. Fill me up, put loving in my cup. I gotta move on.
For everything that I had said, shit I did. And I'm sorry, oh so sorry. I'm not doing well. No, I'm not doing good yet. Grayson Kaka on bass, everyone. Hold on to the feeling. Well, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Hold on to the feeling. Well, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Hold on to the feeling. Well, I'm sorry.
thank you guys. Thank you so much for having us. We are Lo and Behold, if you didn't know. Thank you guys. Thank you, Shelby.